Good evening. I'm Constance Starkey, and this is Eye on the Issues. Well, we here at Eye on the Issues do not endorse any one single candidate. However, unlike the rest of the media, we think it's important to cover all the presidential candidates. Therefore, this evening, we are very pleased and proud to have with us our Democratic presidential candidate, Dennis Kucinich. In 1969, at the age of 23, Dennis Kucinich was elected to the Cleveland City Council, and in 1977 was elected mayor of Cleveland, making him, at the age of 31, the youngest mayor of a major city in the United States. In 1994, he ran successfully for the Ohio Senate and then went on to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1996, representing the 10th District of Ohio. He won that election against a two-term Republican incumbent in an historically Republican district. He has defeated his opposition by incredibly wide margins ever since. In 2003, Congressman Kucinich was a recipient of the Gandhi Peace Award, an annual award bestowed by the Religious Society of Friends affiliated organization promoting enduring peace. He currently serves on the Congressional Education and Labor Committee, as well as the Government Reform Committee. He is a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and as you know, he is running as a Democratic candidate for president. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here with you.
We also have with us this evening his lovely wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a native of North Ockenden, I believe, a settlement in the London borough of Havering in London. In 1996, she went to Agra, India, to volunteer at one of Mother Teresa's homes for India's poorest children. Upon earning her bachelor's degree in religious studies and theology and master's degree in international conflict analysis at the University of Kent, she spent 16 months in a rural Tanzanian village and worked as an advocate for regional development. She also volunteered with the British Red Cross Refugee Unit, earned a certificate in peace studies from Coventry University, and eventually ended up at the office of the Chicago-based American Monetary Institute, which is how she met her now husband of 2 years, Congressman Dennis Kucinich. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you.
I made kind of a joke at the beginning of the program about the media not covering all of our candidates, but it really is no joke. You turn on any local or national news program and you would think that there were only 4, possibly 5 people running for president. Now, this is an issue you had to deal with in your last run for president in 2004. ABC yanked their correspondent from your campaign after Ted Koppel asked you if you really weren't just running a vanity campaign. You were very outspoken about the media bias back then. What are you doing to kind of deal with this now?
Well, I think the American people are dealing with it because even without regard to the minimal coverage, I'm still running ahead of candidates who are getting a lot of coverage, or even with candidates. So my campaign, responding to the concerns of the American people for peace, for a not-for-profit health care system, is gaining a lot of support. It was, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, a poet once wrote these lines that the revolution will not be televised. I can tell you that even though we're on television right now, and I'm very grateful to be here, by the way, I also think there's a process that happens in our community that's community-based. It's word of mouth. And people get a sense of who their candidates are. And I think that's happening more and more. And there are some forces that are moving this campaign along. And I'm very grateful to have the support of so many people. Campaign's moving right ahead. Grateful to be here.
Well, I read a recent Pew Research poll that said that 1 out of every 3 Americans are now getting their news off the Internet. So you have the Internet, you have venues like this available to you, although maybe not forever because they're trying to get rid of public access cable.
Let me speak to that a minute. You know, as the chairman of the Domestic Policy Subcommittee of the United States Congress, we're going to be looking into this issue of the attempt to literally knock community access television out of the picture. We need to be very concerned that people understand the airways belong to the public in the first place. And these community access TV productions are critical to affirming the original intent of the Federal Communication Act of 34, which was that the electronic broadcast media serve in the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Thank you for doing that, and I am aware of that issue, and we're going to look into it.
Well, great, thank you, because then we won't be here. Something that didn't get any coverage, and really should have, was that you and Elizabeth just recently returned from the Middle East on a mission. Could you please tell us a little bit about that, about where you went?
Well, Dennis and I went to Lebanon and Syria. It marked 1 year after our last trip to the Middle East, where we went to Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Palestine. And really, we went to the region for a number of different issues. One was to meet with President Assad, as is advised in the Baker-Hamilton report, talking about having to not isolate Syria and Iran, but engage in diplomacy with them, talk to them, and engage them in stabilizing Iraq, because that was what was necessary. So we spoke to him about HR 1234, which is the resolution that Dennis has entered in to Congress to end the war in Iraq. And it's a plan which talks about the troops and contractors leaving Iraq, but at the same time a peacekeeping and security force coming in. Now, we went to the region to speak with President Assad to see whether he would be willing to participate in putting together an international peacekeeping and security force, of talking to leaders through the region and helping in that process. And he absolutely supported that.
And I think it's important to know, we weren't there negotiating for the United States, but in reaching out to President Assad of Syria and also President Lahoud of Lebanon, and people in both countries, what we were able to determine is there is still a lot of love for the United States, a willingness to work for peace, and they're looking for partners.
That's wonderful to know. What is it about HR 1234 that sets that sort of sets you apart from the other candidates?
Well, let's start 5 years ago. I'm the only one running for president who 5 years ago created an analysis of the cause for war that was being built, and chapter and verse was able to dismiss each and every claim that took us to war. This was 5 years ago. All the other candidates for president either voted for the war, or they voted to fund the war, almost 100% of the time, with the last vote being the only exception. So here I am, having challenged the war from its inception, led the Congress in opposing the war, led the Congress in opposing every attempt to fund the war, and HR 1234 is the plan to end the war. It would end the occupation, close our bases, bring the troops home, and put in motion an international security and peacekeeping force that will move in as our troops leave, as they must leave. So this plan will stabilize Iraq, because it involves keeping the control of Iraq's oil under the Iraqi people. Our nation, our leaders are trying to scheme on behalf of the international oil companies and American oil companies to take the oil of Iraq, to privatize it. That's wrong. The Iraq people need to make their own decisions on that. Then, when we make that clear, that we're not trying to take the oil, it'll be a lot easier to have a program of reconciliation, reconstruction, and reparations. So those are the elements of the plan.
Well, right now, we are facing a very, very important issue in this country, which is the health care crisis. Here in California, it's an extremely hot-button issue right now, because we have a lot of legislation out there. We have Senator Sheila Kuehl's bill, SB 840, which is a single-payer health care bill. It's right before the Assembly now. It basically works like Medicare. It just sort of takes the insurance companies out of the equation. Of course, Governor Schwarzenegger has his own plan out there, which is basically an individual mandate, which is going to force people to buy health insurance, whether they can afford it or not. It'll sort of work like car insurance, so the insurance